Do you have any personal horror stories or scary experiences of your own?
My life? No, I'm totally joking. No,
That's how I would answer for myself too.
LGBTQuties.
And welcome back to another episode of A Jaded Gay. I'm Rob Lovelace, and today I am a jaded gay just because it has been a long week. I'm dragging, I'm tired. I really just want to go to bed. I need like a good night's sleep. It's been a week, but here I am. Anyway, something that'll wake me up is a very exciting episode for you today. I am super excited to be collaborating with another podcast host, perfect for the Halloween season, because here we are. Happy Halloween. I'll introduce him in a bit, but beforehand, let's pull the tarot. So the card for this episode is the Queen of Pentacles in reversed. And Pentacles is tied to the element of earth, so it's very grounding, stabilizing, feminine energy. So it's really asking us to reflect and meditate. And Pentacles is tied to prosperity, literally financial prosperity, but I like to think of it as emotional prosperity. You know, like putting in the hard work and reaping the rewards of your labor. Now, the Queen is the 13th card in the suit of Pentacles. So in numerology, we add 1 plus 3 together, which equals 4. See, I'm not just another pretty face, I could do math. And 4 is tied to structure, stability, and foundation. Now, typically the Queen of Pentacles is a very nurturing card, kind of motherly, and it's representative of that person who can do it all. You know, family, career, a master at balancing. And when we pull this card upright, it's signaling that we're nurturing others. But when we draw this card in reversed, it's indicating that we need to nurture ourselves. We need to turn that energy inwards to make sure we can sustain our lifestyle. And it can also indicate that our work and home life are out of balance, so we really need to be mindful about how we can take better care of ourselves to achieve that balance. So with that in mind, let's get into the show. I am very excited to introduce our next guest. He is the host of Scream Queer podcast. Please welcome Ralph Anthony. Hi, Ralph.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to have you on for our Halloween special episode. So to kick it off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you identify, you know, what you do for work and your podcast?
I go by he, him pronouns. Right now I am a delivery driver, and which is really awesome. I get to work on my own schedule, and that's really allowed me time to work on this podcast as well. I'm 33 years old. I live in between Los Angeles and San Francisco, California. It's crazy here, but, I really wanted to pursue something that I was passionate about. And I love all things like horror, paranormal, scary, spooky, just all of it, true crime. So I was like, you know what, like, why don't I create a space where me, a gay man, can talk about these issues and topics, and just my podcast is basically just like a big melting pot of everything, because one of the things I always bring up is that there's nothing scarier than the world that we live in.
Absolutely, very true. And we are going to get into all things scary very shortly. But to kick it off, I like to ask all my guests too, are you a jaded or non-jaded gay today?
Okay, so I'm kind of geeking out right now because I've made it very clear that I am a fan of this podcast. So I was kind of overthinking this question earlier. Here in this moment, I am not a jaded gay right now. Wait, is it, are you a non-jaded gay or a jaded gay?
Non-jaded gay or jaded?
I'm not jaded whatsoever. I am extremely excited and grateful to be here right now.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you on. And I am the same way. Even when I'm planning the episodes, I have to kind of like plan out like, all right, what's happened in the past couple of days to determine if I'm jaded or non-jaded for today's episode. So the overthinking is mutual here.
Yeah.
So getting right into it, let's start off with, can you tell us about how your love of the horror genre began?
Yeah, my love of horror, from what I can remember, I believe I was 6. I was at a family barbecue and everyone was talking about this new movie that had just come out, Scream, and they were just like hyping it up and all that. And then they ended up watching it and they were like, "You might want to go to the other room because it's a scary movie." But I was like, "No, I'll watch it." And I don't know, I was scared of it, but at the same time, I was like drawn in and like just so fascinated by it. And I think from then on, I just like would watch scary movies on television, like the TV versions. I would always go to the scary movie aisle in Blockbuster. And I don't know, I've just always been drawn to that. Like, I'm like a very dark person, so like I'm always drawn to like things that are always like off-putting and whatnot.
Did it like scare you when you were younger watching scary movies? Like, did it leave a
Yeah.
lasting impact?
Oh yeah, I think to this day I come off as this very like dark person, which I am, but I'm also the biggest chicken. Um yeah, like it still scares me. Like I just seen the newest Nun movie, which was pretty terrifying. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's like I'm just drawn to it.
I know what you mean. Growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch scary movies. And like around the time of middle school, I really wanted to start watching them. So I'd watch the TV versions, but then I'd have nightmares for weeks and my parents would get mad at me. They're like, "This is why we don't let you watch scary movies." Yeah. But as I've gotten older, I mean, nightmares are less, but yeah, I just love them. Like I like a good jump scare and nothing really leaves like a lasting impact where I'm scared, except for like demonic possession movies. Those really freak me out. And The Nun, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I lean more towards like slashers, and I mean like the PG-13 ghost movies are okay. But yeah, I'm more of a slasher guy.
I'd say probably same here for me. But with that being said, and I think I might already know the answer to this from listening to your podcast, but
what's your favorite scary movie
and why?
My favorite question. The Scream franchise, I think for anyone who is afraid of watching horror or they're just like very hesitant, I think Scream is like the perfect segue into the genre. Because it's not just like scary and bloody. I mean, it has elements of like comedy and it's very meta. And I don't know, I think that's why that particular franchise has always like captivated me, just because it like never took itself too seriously.
Definitely. It's like very self-aware. It pokes fun at itself, but there's still like, the thrills along the way, the plot twists. Which out of the whole franchise, which has been your favorite movie so far?
I get a lot of backlash and hate from the horror community, but yes, the original will always be the top dog. It'll always be great, but in my opinion, my favorite one is the fourth one, Scream 4. I just think it captured a lot of the same elements as the original film and just kind of made it fresh, which is a bummer because that's like the lowest grossing film in the whole franchise. So, I mean, it makes me sad, but that's still my favorite. And the killer reveal and the like motive, it was just so relevant. It was just about getting famous off of putting videos on the internet, which is, I mean, that's so relevant now.
Yeah, I remember the fourth one. I don't remember a ton. I remember when it came out because I think I was like in college when that was coming out, because that's with Hayden Panettiere, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that one I remember a little bit. I like the first two were the ones I watched a lot, so those ones are a little bit more familiar to me. And then I actually went to go see the newest one back on Easter Sunday. And I don't know what happened. I guess I've been in like a black hole the past few years. I did not realize there was a fifth one that came out in, 2021? So I went into the sixth one like completely blind. I'm like, wait, it seems like there's some backstories I don't understand. So.
Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. But still enjoyed it. I still haven't seen the fifth one yet, so I'll have to go back and watch it at some point. But well, with that being said, last year I did a podcast episode on, the horror genre and how there's roots and queerness to it, going back to as far as like the 1600s. So I guess in your own personal opinion, why do you think there's a connection between the horror genre and queerness?
Well, I mean, I actually just looked up the definition of queer the other day just to kind of give myself a refresher, and I believe it said like just like a strange or just like not like in line with normal, quote unquote normal. And I think maybe, well, that's why I'm drawn to it, because like I said, I like things that are just like off-putting. I'm not saying we're off-putting, but just off-putting to other people, the masses. And I mean, a lot of what we're seeing today, I think, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Like a lot of like closed-minded people, like view us as like off-putting and just like weird and strange. And I don't know, maybe like I can identify with that in some weird way, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm making sense here.
Definitely. I think, especially in a lot of like horror movies, there's always kind of in one form or the other. And I want to be careful to say this because I don't want to liken, queer people to being, the villains of the horror movies. But whether it's the villain or the protagonist, like the person who solves the crime or whatever, usually they're kind of like there's a difference to them. They're like the outcast or the other, they're the one that's bullied in high school and no one believes them when they're saying that there's a killer on the loose, and then they're the one that saves the town or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably some like identifying there of feeling like that sense of other that people aren't paying attention to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I do have a quick little Halloween pop quiz for you if you're up for it.
Oh my. Okay.
Don't worry, there's no right or wrong answers. There's no trivia. What I did was I actually went through and I pulled a list of different types of monsters. So we're going to go through the list and I want you to tell me if you consider them to be queer or not and why.
Okay.
So the first one, again, no right or wrong answers. So the first one are vampires. Are they queer or not?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I consider vampires to be in touch with their feminine side.
I feel like there's a little bit of like, they feel very fluid, So like they seem to be very like sensual. They're, seducing their victims or anything like that.
Yes.
Okay. Next one, ghosts.
I don't think queer at all. This is hard actually. Yeah, no, I don't think queer at all. No.
I could see it going both ways because like they could be like straight people, how they're just there not contributing much, or I just did a podcast episode on ghosting, and I feel like there is a high amount of ghosting sometimes with gay dating, so it could really go either way depending on how you're interpreting it.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, and this might be a little bit spookier, demons.
I want to say queer. Because a lot of straight people like to associate us with like demonic stuff, and I think there was that whole like Pride demon thing that was going on during Pride. So I mean, I don't know. Might as well just own it now, I guess. I don't know.
That's a good tie into that because I forgot that for anybody who's not familiar, there was a sign that said Pride Month, and somebody from the right, I don't know if it was on Twitter or what, but they erased like the PRI from Pride and the TH from month, so it just spelt demon. So somebody's like, see, there is a demonic connection to Pride, and
there was like shirts too, I believe.
Yeah, I think some of the LGBTQ plus community at Pride that year took it as kind of a badge of honor and made shirts out of it. So, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, make Pride demons.
Exactly.
So the next one is witches.
Oh, I love a witch. I would say, I feel like both. It could go either way.
Definitely. And if they're not queer themselves, definitely queer icons, because I feel like a lot of the witches we see on TV are very campy and have a very gay appeal to them. So
of course, you have the Hocus Pocus and
exactly.
With Charmed and Practical Magic, like just iconic, like so good.
Yeah. Even going back to Glinda the Good Witch,
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of queer people like look up to those types of characters. Because in my opinion, I believe like they always just give off like strong female, just, amazingness.
Yeah, they take care of themselves. They challenge the gender roles. Like they don't need the patriarchy because they are their own, especially back in like the, what was it? The historical times of like the witchcrafts and everything. They weren't married. They did their own thing. They took care of themselves, which was very much against the status quo at the time.
Yes. And they put hexes on people.
Exactly. Next is zombies.
Ooh, zombies. I'm just going based off of like mainstream media. I feel like a lot of zombie like films and shows are mainly like I don't know. Has there been queer characters in zombie? I'm not really a zombie guy, but I feel like a lot of those like films and shows are like aimed more towards like traditional. I could be wrong though. I'm not a avid watcher of zombie flicks. So or the what's that show? The Walking Dead. Yeah, yeah. So I would say no, not queer.
I've never really, same, I've never really watched too many zombie movies and never got into The Walking Dead. I think there might have been a gay storyline in that, but I can't imagine it being, I think it's kind of hard to picture a gay storyline in the midst of like a zombie apocalypse.
I mean, there was one in the HBO Max show, The Last of Us, which I heard was really good. But I mean, those aren't zombies; those are just people infected by that mushroom that I can't pronounce.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm thinking more of like the zombies, like, the arms out, like all maggoty and stuff kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So,
definitely straight.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Not queer. Not queer.
Exactly, because the straights don't take care of their skin like we do. So.
Yes, yeah, they don't moisturize.
Yeah. Next is ogres. And I mean, I have to admit, my first thought when I think of ogres is Shrek, but ogres as a general monster, I guess. Yeah.
I would say queer. I mean, I'm thinking of Shrek though. Like that movie is just so colorful. Yeah, I would say ogres could be queer.
We're getting towards the bottom of the list here. We have skeletons next.
Skeletons. I don't know. I would. Oh my gosh, I'm calling a skeleton a queer, like queer. I would say so. Like they, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing here. I'm like sweating right now.
Oh my gosh, no wrong. Like I said, no wrong answers for this. Purely just opinions.
Yeah. I would say skeleton because they take care of themselves. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, next is werewolves.
Oh, definitely queer. Oh yeah, like that's giving
like daddy vibes.
Yes, like very like zaddy. Yes.
Yeah, like especially with werewolves, I think like not that it's a horror movie, but one of the like my parents were kind of strict about what I could watch when I was younger, so PG-13 was like we had to have a conversation about it. But one of like the first PG-13 movies I saw was Van Helsing, and there's
oh my god, I was thinking of that. Yeah. Yes.
Between Hugh Jackman and then I don't know whoever Kate Beckinsale's brother is, but he's the werewolf in it too, and just like the two of them, very much daddy vibes. Yeah, it's supposed to be like all emotional and stuff, but I'm like, all right, but like I kind of like the transformation. Like, take off your shirt again. Yeah, I think we're both in the mindset there, daddy queer.
Zaddy, yes. I think the ending where after he kills Kate Beckinsale's character and he's like howling and then he like transforms like back into like human form and like he's like shirtless and his pants are kind of ripped and like you can see like his legs a little bit. I'm like, okay, I like that was like a gay awakening for some, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, the director knew what he was doing there.
Yes.
Well, we are on our final two here. What about mummies? Queer or not queer?
I feel like the mummy community is very like underappreciated. I don't know a lot about them because like there isn't really a lot of like films and like I don't know. I just because I don't know much about. I feel like I'm talking about like an actual. I would say not queer. The only mummies I can think of is Under Wraps from the Disney Channel and like from the Goosebumps books. That's it. So I mean, I would say not queer.
Okay, fair enough. And then the last one is goblins.
Oh gosh, no, not it. Because you have little goblins on the internet just trolling people all the time. So no, absolutely not queer.
Exactly. The goblins are like the right-wing Karens.
Exactly. I'm actually like deathly afraid of like have you heard of that film Leprechaun with Warwick Davis? It's like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I get it. It's like a horror comedy, but I think that's like one of my like worst childhood fears. I think even now, like I can't even like look. It's so weird. I can watch anything like demons and yeah, I'll like be scared of that. But like this little leprechaun, I just cannot look at. It is the weirdest thing. So definitely goblins, not queer. I want nothing to do with them. Goblins, leprechauns, like no, no.
Anything small and trolly now. It's actually funny, the leprechaun. So I remember like camping with my family when I was a kid, and my cousins are a few years older than me. And so they had seen it, I hadn't. But like my one cousin like held up a flashlight and jumped out of the woods and had it shining on his face and like did the leprechaun voice. It was in the middle of the woods, like, no, thank you. But then as I got older, I actually like sat down and watched the movie, and I realized that the guy who you said, Warwick Davis, who played who played Leprechaun, he played Professor Flitwick in Harry Potter. So like once I knew that, it didn't scare me as much. Like it was the same thing with The Ring. I was terrified of The Ring, and then I found out that the girl who played like Samara is the voice of Lilo and Stitch. So that took the scare out of it for me then after that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I love that fun, like those like fun trivia things like that.
Yeah.
And with the leprechaun too, like Jennifer Aniston in one scene, I think she like twisted her ankle or like hurt it really bad, and she still had to like run on it in like a chase scene. So
Yes. And to this day, she like says that she regrets ever doing that film. And I mean, it's a out there film. It's I think it's more for like entertainment. Obviously, like you're not trying to go into it trying to be scared, but I was.
yeah, and they really, I mean, they cashed that check and just went with it, because there's at least 4 Leprechaun movies. There might even be more. I don't know. I can make that many of it.
It's a full on franchise. I think he went to space and he went to the hood, and it's pretty crazy. But it's still scary to me. I don't know why. The makeup's that good, I guess.
Yeah, some things just, you know, they resonate with you a different way.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, we went through kind of those different monster types there. Taking it back to everything queer horror, who are some of your favorite queer horror characters, and why do you consider them to be queer?
I mean, I'm gonna have to go with my favorite franchise. First of all, I just want to commend. I believe they're called Radio Silence, the team who's responsible for the 2 recent Scream films. Just for like inclusion of like all types of orientations and genders and just like queer representation. My favorite character from the new franchise is Mindy, who is portrayed by Jasmine Savoy Brown, who is amazing. She's amazing. I love how I believe she identifies as a lesbian in the film, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But no, I love how they made this like strong and like quick on their feet, sassy character. And I mean, she's not like a damsel in distress. Like she is literally like the comedic relief, and like she's so funny, and she doesn't die, which is great. Spoiler alert. And yeah, I think like as a queer person, like that's the kind of representation that I would love to see more of in like mainstream film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, she's, you know, the comedic relief, but also like can take a hit. Like, I mean, I think what was it on the subway? She was like stabbed, and then she's sitting in the subway station, and like they're like, "Oh, are you okay?" And she's just like, "Oh, go get him!" Like she's not like waiting around for people to like take care of her. She's like, "Get him!" Like,
and then at the very end, she's like running around like, "Who's the killer? Who's the killer?" I'm like, "Girl, you just got stabbed. Like, why are you running?"
Exactly.
But no, yeah, that's like just like a strong character. She was awesome.
Definitely. And then regarding queerness, whether we're talking about characters or storylines, you kind of touched upon this already with the inclusivity, but what would you like to see more of in horror movies?
I need to see a queer final girl, final boy, final day, just and like the main character. I don't like the side characters are great. But I think it's time. Like I'm ready to see like a queer like front runner. Like I want to see them be the main character. I want them to be the Sydney Prescott of their own franchise. Like that would just be so cool. Like, and I think we're in a time right now where like we're fighting for like so much, and I think that would be kind of important just to include that. And I don't want to like straight to DVD film. I want like these big companies need to get together and put it out in theaters and back it like they do everything else. But I mean, I'm a very hopeful person. So just fingers crossed that like something like that were to happen, because that would just be so awesome.
Like Love Simon blockbuster size, but obviously horror.
Yes, horror version though. Yeah, like fighting and like bloody, and just seeing someone's like journey. Because that's another thing I like about horror is some of these horror films, like they showcase like someone's trauma and how it affects them throughout their life, like how these like scary events like take over their lives, and it affects their mental health. And like I think that's also why I like the horror genre, if that sounds kind of crazy, but I know it's just it's really cool to see someone who goes from being a victim to a fighter.
Definitely. Well, shifting it up a little bit, I know we talked about it up front, but tell us all about the Scream Queer podcast.
Okay, the Scream Queer podcast. I always get so nervous when I get asked this question. It's essentially a horror true crime podcast, but I don't just talk about Scream. I like I said, I wanted it to be kind of like because there are like other horror queer podcasts, but I just wanted to talk about everything. Like I didn't want it to be just about true crime, just about scary movies. Like obviously I do talk about some more serious topics in there. And I don't know. If I can just like help or identify with just even one person, then I did something right. But yeah, it's it started off quite messy, which is why if you're looking for a first season, I kind of archived it until further notice. But I think what I was talking about then wasn't really relevant to what's going on now. Like I said, I wanted to talk about like more important issues. I just didn't want to talk about like sexual stuff, which is kind of what I did in the beginning, and I kind of regret that. But I mean, we all got to start somewhere. But yeah, so it's a true crime horror podcast, and I really got into like my little like storyteller kind of era too, and it seems to be a hit. Where I do all my research, I essentially create little essays for like each case that I do research on, and then I just kind of like I read it in like a really like deep and like slow voice, and yeah, and that's been doing really well. Am I even answering your question, or I'm just going off on a tangent here? Like,
No, yeah, you're definitely answering it. I mean, like I said, this is your chance. Tell us everything about Scream Queer.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, I answer listener submitted questions. I share listener submitted paranormal stories, which has been really cool. Some of the things that these people go through, it's pretty bizarre and extraordinary. Like it's just so crazy.
Yeah, I know. Listening to I remember there was, I think it might have been a Valentine's Day episode. You did like horror hookup stories, and some of those were wild.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And very scary. That's why everyone should be very careful when using these hookup apps. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. And I want there to be some sort of lesson taught, like to not to not go into a really scary house that you might feel you'll get attacked in. Like you just have to be very vigilant and just aware of your surroundings, because people are crazy, you guys.
You can't trust anyone, especially when there's a full moon.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any personal horror stories or scary experiences of your own?
My life? No, I'm totally joking. No,
that's how I would answer for myself too.
You know what? I wish I did, but at the same time, I'm glad I've never really experienced anything. I think the only thing close to that is my dad, who I've had on the podcast. I mean, I can share that story. That's where he was driving with one of his girlfriends back from somewhere, and it was like out in the middle of nowhere, and he believed that he had seen some extraterrestrial object hovering over a barn, and he said it was really similar to a Ferris wheel, but there was nothing underneath it like holding it, but it was just like spinning over some barn. And I mean, why would there be a Ferris wheel in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere over a barn? I don't know, but yeah, I think like that's like the closest it get to having like a paranormal experience, but I'm not out here kind of like hoping for one because I don't know how I would react. Like I said, I'm such a huge chicken and I'm scared of my own shadow at times, which is really weird for me to say.
I totally get it. It's like I like all the scary stuff, but I don't want it anywhere near my life. So I like watching like unsolved mysteries, all that stuff. But like if that were to happen like too close to home, I'd be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, and that it doesn't help with that theme song. Like that theme song is just, it's iconic, but at the same time, it's just so haunting and scary.
Oh yeah, that in and of itself is like scary enough. And then you actually get into like the meat of the episode, and you're like, oh my god, how am I sleeping tonight?
Yes.
Well, with that in mind too, I believe you've prepared a true crime case for us from one of your listeners. Is that correct?
I did.
Awesome. Do you want to kind of just set that up and tell us a little bit about it before we play the clip?
Of course. Well, I was sent an anonymous story of a woman who was living by herself. I believe she had just moved out from her parents' home. Anyway, she was experiencing some paranormal activity one night where she heard loud banging, and then she seen like a really creepy face next to her. And then she was being harassed by this really odd man who kept knocking on her door asking for help. And every time she would try to call for help, he would vanish.
That sounds creepy. So let's check it out.
Everything started on a random Saturday in the summer of 2019. It was approximately 2:30 a.m. I had just gotten home from my shift at my local bar. A night of serving drinks all night had me beat. I was exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. After what felt like an eternity of tossing and turning, I decided to scroll on my phone. As I lay there, in bed, the room was cloaked with an unsettling silence. Something was off tonight. Bang, bang, bang. I jolt up. Am I being robbed? I start to panic, but before I could get up to investigate the sound, I feel an icy chill on my right shoulder. Goosebumps prickled my skin as I turned to my right, only to find an elderly woman's face beside me. The face was shrouded in darkness, but what I could make out was a woman staring, eyes wide and mouth open, as if she was in pain or afraid. At this moment, I backed away, falling off of my bed. I struggled to gain my balance and stand, so I just remember crawling out of the room until I could get up and storm out. I screamed from my living room, "Get out of my house! I'm calling the police!" But there is no answer. I quietly walk to the door and peek out of its small built-in window. No one is there. No windows appear to be broken or open. I walk back to my room without hesitation, almost ready to fight whoever was in there. I switch on the light. There's nobody there. I remember immediately crying, hyperventilating. Then everything went dark. I remember waking up on the floor the next morning, completely exhausted. I get up, walk over to my bed, and go back to sleep. Days passed, but the memory lingered like a ghostly specter. I remember discussing it with my parents. In typical parenting fashion, I was scolded by my mother. "This is why you need a roommate. I told you not to move into that place alone." My dad jumping in, "You can come home." Growing up with strict parents, I valued my independence. I love my parents, don't get me wrong, but this random and unexplainable occurrence wasn't going to push me back home. Later that evening, I was back in my place. A knock at the door shattered the tranquility of my evening. I wasn't afraid, but for some reason I was hesitant to open the door. I stayed still. The knocking continued. This time, it didn't stop. One knock after another. My heart skipped a beat as I cautiously stood up and approached. I'm scared now. My hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. There, standing before me, was a pale, middle-aged man, almost resembling my dad. His eyes filled with desperation. He pleaded for my help, his voice trembling with fear and urgency. I asked him what was going on, and all he kept saying was, They're out here trying to kill me. Please call the police. He attempted to come inside, but I quickly shut the door, yelling for him to wait. I wasn't sure if this was a real cry for help or a potential threat. Fear gripped me, and I quickly backed up silently and reached for my phone to call the authorities, hoping to offer some assistance. I never once turned away from the door. As I opened the door, the man, he vanished, gone, leaving me standing there in disbelief. The room felt heavy with an otherworldly energy, the air thick with mystery and unanswered questions. I made my report to the police, but I never had any follow-up. Days turned into nights. The encounters continued sporadically. Whispers in the dead of night would rouse me from my sleep. I would find myself having vivid dreams, coming face to face with the elderly woman I had seen prior. But in these dreams, her presence was both comforting and haunting. We would exchange unspoken words, a silent connection forming between us. The most unexplainable was the pale, middle-aged man. He returned. I told him I called the police once before, questioning why he left, questioning everything. Either I was going insane, he was on something, or I was stuck in some sort of time loop. Leaving me on edge, I left my door open as I rushed to grab my phone, desperate to capture evidence of his existence. In that moment, my door slammed shut. When I opened it, he was gone. These encounters left me with a sense of unease, yet with so many questions. Who were they? What were they trying to communicate to me? Was I going crazy? Was it in my head? I relocated when my girlfriend and I started to get more serious, moving in together. You can believe what you will, but to me, these experiences were very, very real. I still have dreams of the old woman.
Well, that was, like I said, when I listened to that earlier, that was super freaky, especially the part with the head showing up there. Like I can't if I was sleeping and just saw that.
Exactly how like she wrote it, like how she just like fell out of bed and just like kind of was just crawling up. That's probably exactly how I would like react to, because I don't know what I would do. Like just to see a face that's with her mouth open and eyes just, oh my gosh, no way. There's no way.
That's always something that like gives me chills. Like when you're watching a scary movie or like a true crime thing, whatever, and it's just somebody like shows up in the bedroom, like they're like out of the closet or something like that. That's like something about that. Like, I mean, a lot of scary things happen, but like that just is way too freaky for me.
Yeah. Like just to see something there, like watching you, like a shadowy figure, like absolutely not.
That was like, did you ever watch the Slender Man videos on YouTube?
Terrifying. That whole, even though it's like not real, but it's still terrifying to me.
Yeah, because it's like found footage, so it feels real. But do you know the clip on them talking about where it's like the guy's recording himself sleeping, and you see like the static and stuff, and then all of a sudden one frame shows up, and there's a guy in a mask just sitting at the foot of his bed watching him sleep. That's what I was thinking of when you're talking about the case about the woman seeing that face. So it's like, oh my God, I'm probably not going to sleep tonight now that I just unlocked that memory. But not the kind of man you want to wake up to in the middle of the night.
Oh, absolutely not. No way. There's another one on the internet. I believe it's on YouTube. It's a short film called Lights Out. It's of this girl who, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's of this girl. I think they made it into like an actual full-length film. But I'm talking about the short film version. So this woman is like in her house, and every time she turns off a light, she sees like a shadow figure of like a girl. And anyway, so she ends up going to sleep, and then she hears noises again. And then when she turns on her light, there's like this really ugly, like scary face that's just like watching her. And that's what I thought of. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think I would just probably like die of a heart attack, like, because that is so terrifying.
Absolutely not. That's no, thank you.
Yeah, I claim none of that energy, so don't bring it to me.
Yeah, I love watching it for entertainment purposes, but I do not need that in my own life.
No, my life's already messy right now. I'm just kidding.
Well, shifting gears a little bit, connecting the tarot to today's episode with all things spooky, Queen of Pentacles in reversed, it's indicating that we need to nurture ourselves. So literally, we need to watch our own backs, watch out for those killers, watch out for the slashers, and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So a little bit looser of an interpretation there, but taking it a step further in general, make sure we're checking in with ourselves, taking care of ourselves, and prioritizing what we need to keep our lives in balance. Ralph, thank you again for joining today. Like I said, I've been a big fan of the podcast, so I was really excited to have you on. Can you please tell everyone where they can find you, connect with you, and hear more of those spooky stories that you told us today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. Like I said, I was kind of like geeking out. Just thank you for having me on to like share my like little story. I am really grateful for that. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. Personal account is Ralph Anthony with 3 Ys. The podcast account is at Scream Queer Podcast. And that's pretty much like where I spend most of my time.
And is there anything else upcoming that you want to kind of tease for everyone about either the podcast or any other ventures or anything?
There's like some collabs coming up. Just expect to see more of me because I'm gonna be like a roach that won't go away. I'm gonna I'm gonna creep onto your phones and yeah.
Awesome. Well, I cannot wait for that. And everyone definitely check out Scream Queer Podcast. Go follow him on Instagram. You will not be sorry. It is so entertaining, so spooky. Usually listen to it in the morning when I'm at the gym. And like, especially when there's like the 911 transcripts going on in there, I get chills. It's scary, but super entertaining. So go check it out. For everybody, you know the drill. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, SoundCloud, and YouTube at A Jaded Gay Pod. You can follow me, Rob Loveless, personally on Instagram at Rob_Loveless. Also consider following the podcast on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You get access to episodes a day early, ad-free, along with bonus content. And remember, every day is all we have, so you got to make your own happiness.
Bye.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. Oh my gosh. The worst luck. I'm so sorry.
You're okay. Yeah, I think there might be a slight lag in my audio. I don't know if I'm ahead or behind you.
It's those spirits. I'm telling you because we're talking about it.
I know. We talk too much about it now. They're just interfering.
Yeah. Now they're coming after us.